Well, good morning, church. It's so good to see you this morning, especially on this special Sunday in which we get to honor our graduates. For graduation is an exciting time, and it's also a time of many other things, such as a time of remembrance, of looking back to freshman year and seeing how much things have changed, and sharing memories of friends of what you remember of both the good things and the things that weren't so good. It's also time of celebration, for you have accomplished something. For the last 4 or so years, you have been working hard, and through coffee, sweat, and a lot of hard work, you have come to this moment in which we get to honor you for accomplishing something, showing that all of that hard work that you put in wasn't for waste, that it was meant for something more. And it's also time for something new, which is both exciting because you may have plans that you can't wait to do. It's things that you haven't experienced before in places that you haven't been. But it can also be intimidating and scary because as humans, we like to get into a routine. We like to do what makes us comfortable and get in our comfort zone, which is all right. But in a time such as graduation, a time of transition, you get to create a new routine. You get to do something, create something that's new that can be scary because it's not as familiar or something different. But any chance that there is of fear, there's also a chance of courage. A chance for you to step up and embrace that new thing, to embrace that new adventure, that new chapter of your life. Because we can't keep things the same. For anything that is living, any living organism, if it's not changing and growing, it's dying. And a lot of us, we don't like to hear that because we like how things are. And there are things that change that we may miss. Yes, we may be excited for the new things, but we might be leaving family and friends behind. We might even be leaving our state behind. But even though things change and there might be some things we don't like, there will be other things that we may like as well. But we can't get to those things if we don't allow those changes to happen. And if we like it or not, the world is changing around us and we can't keep things the same. And even though we may say goodbye now, there will be a day we no longer have to say goodbye. And I don't know about you, but I can't wait for that day. Graduation is an exciting time and a time of transition. And even though this Sunday is mainly focused towards the graduates and honoring them, this is a lesson I hope that all of us will be able to learn from as well. For there's many transitions in the lives that maybe some of you are going through right now, or maybe you're about to begin through, or you just got going through a transition. And there's times of transition that are bigger than others, such as graduation, or getting married, or having another kid, or moving. But there's also smaller transitions in our lives, such as transitioning from school to summer, or just from day to day. So each of us, we might are in different stages of transition, either big or small, and maybe going through many of them. And the cool thing about the Bible is that it addresses many different transitions as well. So if you have your Bible, please turn with me to Joshua chapter 3. Joshua chapter 3. And this is one of the biggest transitions for the time of Israel. And it reads, Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Shittim, and they came to the Jordan, he and all the people of Israel. And they lodged there before they passed over. At the end of 3 days, the covenant of Yahweh, your God, being carried by the Levitical priests. Then you shall set out from your place and follow it. Yet there shall be a distance between you and it about 2,000 cubits in length. Do not come near it, in order that you may know the way you shall go, for you have not passed this way before. Then Joshua said to the people, Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow Yahweh will do wonders among you. And Joshua said to the priests, Take up the ark of the covenant and pass on before the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant, and we went before the people. Yahweh said to Joshua, Today I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all the Israel, that you may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. And as for you, command the priests to bear the ark of the covenant. When you come to the brink of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. And Joshua said to the people of Israel, Come here and listen to the words of Yahweh your God. And Joshua said, Here is how you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is passing over you before you into the Jordan. Now therefore take 12 men from the tribes of Israel, from each tribe a man. And when the soles of the feet of the priests bearing the ark of Yahweh, the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off from flowing, and the waters coming down from above shall stand in one heap. So when the people set out from their tents to pass over the Jordan, were the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people. And as soon as those bearing the ark had come as far as the Jordan, and the feet of the priests bearing the ark were dipped in the brink of the water. Now the Jordan overflows all its banks throughout the time of harvest. The waters coming down from above stood and rose up in a heap very far away, at Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan. And those flowing down toward the sea of Arabat, the salt sea, were completely cut off. And the people passed over opposite Jericho. Now the priests bearing the ark of the covenant of Yahweh stood firmly on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan. And all Israel were passing over on dry ground until all the nation finished passing over the Jordan. What we just read is a story of transition. One of the biggest transitions for the people of Israel. For one thing, they had a new leader. Moses had just recently passed away, and he, with God's blessing, elected Joshua to be the new leader of his people. And so Joshua is filling in this new reign, this new time of leadership, and he is the one that gets to bring the people into the promised land. The land that the people have been waiting for so long, the land that had been promised all the way back to Abraham, that his people would inherit and live in. For the generation before this, they didn't get to live in this land. They had a chance to, but when they came to the promised land, they were afraid. And they thought that the Canaanites were bigger than their God, and therefore they let their fear keep them from going into the land. And so people that is now entering into the promised land, had to wait for that generation to pass away so that they may finally get into the land of promise. For 40 years, they wandered around in the wilderness until the fourth generation passed away. The generation that had been in slavery in Egypt. The generation that had seen another river that was part of the Red Sea. The people who had seen the 10 plagues of Egypt. The people who had been rescued by God. And yet they still had fear and didn't think that he was big enough to help them again. And so after years and years of waiting, finally, Israel gets the chance to come into the land flowing with milk and honey. And it's an exciting time, and maybe even a scary time, because the land is still filled with other peoples that they're going to have to go to war with in order to take this land for themselves. But notice who is the first one to enter into the water. That it doesn't part until the priest's feet touch it. And notice what the priests are carrying. It is the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant is the first thing to enter the Jordan before it splits open and lets the people come over it on dry ground. And the Ark of the Covenant is this giant, big golden box that God told his people to build at the end of Exodus. And this beautiful golden box had two cherubim, had two angels sitting on top of it. And whenever this box rested, when the people would take a break, either for the night or just stop, and when they set up their tents, they would set up this giant tent called the tabernacle around this box. And a portion of the glory of God would fill the tabernacle. And his presence would hover in between these two angels on a throne on the mercy seat. So this box that was the first to enter into the water was a symbol that God was going before his people. That they weren't going to the promised land alone. That they had a God who loved them so much that he was willing to go there with them. And symbolically, he was doing so through the Ark of the Covenant. That he was showing that he was with them. That it's because of his glory and his power that they were entering this land. And that it wasn't going to be their land by themselves, that they needed their God with them. And not only was he the first to enter in the Jordan, but it looks like he's the last to leave. That sounds like the priest stood in the center of the Jordan until all of Israel had passed through before the Ark of the Covenant came after them. And I want to challenge us to think the same way whenever we go through a time of transition. To challenge us to allow God to lead before us. Because a lot of times we talk about God and we believe in him. But especially in time of transition, it's easy to get caught up in all the physical things. Then the time of change where we focus on what I need to do, what I need to change, what paperwork I need to get done, or what things I need to unpack, what things I need to do in order to make this transition go smoothly. And so easy to get caught up in the physical that we leave God on the back burner and we forget that He's there. So I want to challenge us, especially in times of transition, to pray to feel God's power, to pray to let Him go before us, and to try to slow down and acknowledge that He is with us, and not to put Him on the back burner, but allow God to be to be the most important part of our life. And so in the story that we just read, the people entered into the promised land. And for many, many years they began taking it, and God was with them. But Joshua, he grew old. And there came a time in his life when he no longer was able to lead Israel, that he was about to step down just as Moses had done many years before. But before he stepped down as the leader of Israel, he gave them these parting words, which we can find in chapter 24. Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem, and summoned the elders, the heads, the judges, and the officers of Israel. And they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said to all the people, "Thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, long ago your fathers lived beyond the Euphrates, Terah, the father of Abraham and of Nahor, and they served other gods. Then I took your father Abraham from beyond the river and led him through all the land of Canaan, and made his offspring many. I gave him Isaac, and Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. And I gave Esau the hill country of Seir to possess. But Jacob and his children went down to Egypt. And I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt with what I did in the midst of it. And afterward I brought you out. Then I brought your fathers out of Egypt and came to the sea. And the Egyptians pursued your fathers with chariots and horsemen to the Red Sea. And when they cried to Yahweh, He put darkness between you and the Egyptians, and made the sea come upon them and cover them. And your eyes saw what I did in Egypt, and you lived in the wilderness a long time. Then I brought you to the land of the Amorites, who lived on the other side of the Jordan. They fought with you, and I gave them into your hand. And you took possession of the land, and I destroyed them before you. Then Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, rose and fought against Israel. And he sent and invited Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you. But I would not listen to Balaam. Indeed, he blessed you. So I delivered you out of his hand, and went over the Jordan and came to Jericho. And the leaders of Jericho fought against you, and also the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And I gave them into your hand. And I sent the hornet before you, which drove them out before you, the two kings of the Amorites. It was not by your sword or by your bow. I gave you a land on which you had not labored, and cities that you had not built. And you dwell in them. You eat of the fruit of the vineyards and olive orchards that you did not plant. Now therefore, fear Yahweh, and serve Him in serenity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve Yahweh. But if it is evil in your eyes to serve Yahweh, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve Yahweh." In Joshua's parting words to Israel, he reminds them of their history, of where they came from. That they are descendants of Abraham, the man who God so long ago gave to him many promises and blessings. They are the descendants of Isaac and Jacob. And that their family so long ago went down to Egypt and became slaves. But when they cried out for God, He came and He rescued them. He brought them into the wilderness, and He took care of them and fed them and made sure that they had water to drink. And it was because of God, not by their power, that they were able to come into the promised land and conquer it for themselves. That it was because of Yahweh, not because of their swords or their bows, that they were able to enter into this promised land. Joshua reminds them of their history because as people, it is so easy for us to forget things. So Joshua reminds them. And then he issues to them a challenge. the same challenge I'd like to challenge us this morning. He challenged them to decide which God would they serve. Would they serve the same gods that Abraham's family served before God had came to Abraham? Would they serve the gods that were down in Egypt? Would they serve the gods of the Canaanites? Or would they serve the one true God? Would they serve Yahweh? Joshua, like God does, gave them a choice and challenged them to decide that day which God he would follow. And Joshua so proudly declared that even though they all had a choice, he would follow the one true God, that he and his household would follow Yahweh. And it's a decision I want us to ask ourselves. What God do we truly follow? Now, we might have different idols. We might not make for ourselves idols of gold or silver or stone or wood that we put up in our houses and bow down to and worship. But some of the most common idols within our culture in the 21st century are pornography, pride, ourselves, money, and busyness. We may not have physical idols that we bow down to and worship, but there may be idols that we're worshiping right now or that we're tempted to worship. And there's a difference between occasionally messing up and coming to God and asking him for forgiveness and make it into a lifestyle. Because as Jesus talks about in his Sermon on the Mount, we cannot serve two masters. We will learn to love one and hate the other. And the more that we give ourselves to these different idols in our American culture, the more that we lose ourselves to them and the less that we have to God, until finally we turn our backs on him completely. We cannot serve both idols and God. So I challenge us today to decide who we will follow. Who will we strive to form a lifestyle around? Will it be a lifestyle that revolves around the pleasures of this world that make us happy? Or will it be a lifestyle that reflects that we love the one true God? And we're willing to give up anything, even things that give us minute pleasure, in order to serve him and to love him. And graduates, especially an important thing to decide now. Because once you go into a time of transition, it's easy to fall into different habits, especially if you're moving to another state and you don't have a church family there that you've established it. You don't have a congregation that you decided to meet with. That if you don't decide to put God full front, it's easy to let everything else distract you and tear you away from him. Transition can be a great time to change things. But don't let the things that you change take you away from your one true God. For he loves you so much. And he is willing to go with you wherever you go. And the amazing thing about our God, even when we do mess up, he still loves you. But he would never turn your back. He would never turn his back on you, even if we may one day turn our back on him. But I pray that we make the choice to follow the one true God. For he has given that choice to us. And he loves us so much, and he can't wait to the day that we get to spend all of eternity with him. These were the words that Joshua gave to the people before he stepped down and they began living in the promised land as a nation. And the amazing thing is, this promised land was one of the blessings, one of the promises that God had given to Abraham so long ago. And finally, it was partly fulfilled. It wasn't fully fulfilled because the Israelites never fully took the whole land. But one day, it will be fully fulfilled when we get to be in heaven in our own promised land, and we get to dwell with God and see him face to face. But I'm afraid the word blessing doesn't mean as much to us as it did to the Hebrew people, because it's not something that we use a lot. We hear it around in our Bible classes and maybe during a sermon, but it's not a term that we, at least most of us, use in everyday life. But blessing was something that was so important to the Hebrew people. And try to help us to understand how important blessing is, let's look at the story in Genesis chapter 27. Genesis chapter 27. And also another thing that was important to the Hebrew people were names. So that whenever they named a kid, that it had meaning to it and that it meant something. So for the sake of this story and to show how things correlate, even if it may say Jacob or Esau, I'll be saying what the names literally mean in Hebrew. So let's go ahead and read Genesis chapter 27. When laughter was old and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Harry his older son and said to him, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am." He said, "Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me. And prepare for me delicious food such as I love, and bring it to me so that I may eat, and that my soul may bless you before I die." Now beautifully ensnaring was listening when Laughter spoke to his son Harry. So when Harry went to the field to hunt for game and bring it, beautifully ensnaring said to his son Cheetle, "I heard your father speak to your brother Harry. Bring me game and prepare for me delicious food that I may eat it and bless you before Yahweh before I die. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock and bring to me 2 good young goats, so that I may prepare from them delicious food for your father, such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies." But Cheetor said to beautifully ensnaring his mother, "Behold, my brother Harry is a hairy man. I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will fail me and shall seem to be mocking him and bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing." His mother said to him, "Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go bring them to me." So he went and took them and brought them to his mother. And his mother prepared delicious food, such as his father loved. Then beautifully ensnaring took the best garments of Harry, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Cheetor, her younger son. And the skins of the young goats she put on his hands, under the smooth part of his neck. And she put the delicious food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Cheetor. So he went in to his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am." "Who are you, my son?" Cheetor said to his father, "I am Harry, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me." But Laughter said to his son, "How is it that you have found us so quickly, my son?" He answered, "Because Yahweh, your God, granted me success." Then Laughter said to Cheetor, "Please come near me, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you're really my son Harry or not." So Cheetor went near to Laughter his father, who felt him and said, "The voice is Cheetor's voice, but the hands are the hands of Harry." And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Harry's hands. So he blessed him. He said, "Are you really my son Harry?" He answered, "I am." Then he said, "Bring it near to me, that I may eat my son's game and bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Laughter said to him, "Come near me and kiss me, my son." So he came near and kissed him. And Laughter smelled the smell of his garments and blessed him and said, "See, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field that Yahweh has blessed. May God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. Let the people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." As soon as Laughter had finished blessing Cheetor, when Cheetor had scarcely gone out from the presence of Laughter his father, Harry his brother came in from hunting. He also prepared delicious food and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, "Let my father rise and eat of my son's game, that you may bless me." His father Laughter said to him, "Who are you?" He answered, "I am your son, your firstborn, Harry." Then Laughter trembled very violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? And I ate all before you came, and I have blessed him. Yes, and he shall be blessed." As soon as Harry heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, O my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully, and he has taken away your blessing." Esau said, "Is he not rightly named Cheetor? For he has cheated me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing." Then he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Laughter answered and said to Harry, "Behold, I have made him lord over you, and all his brothers I have given to him for servants, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son?" Harry said to his father, "Have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father." And Harry lifted up his voice and wept. Then laughter his father answered and said to him, "Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restless, and you shall break his yoke away from your neck." Now Harry hated Cheetle because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Harry said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father approaching, then I will kill my brother Cheetle." But the words of Harry, her older son, were told her beautifully ensnaring. So she sent and called Cheetle, her younger son, and said to him, "Behold, your brother puts himself about you by planning to kill you. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to White, my brother in Havan, and stay with him a while until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereft of both of you in one day?" What we just read is a heartbreaking story. It's a story of a mother and a son who schemed to take away the blessing that belonged to the oldest child. That they found a way that they could cheat the system, and so that Jacob, instead of Esau, would be blessed by his father. And when Esau finds out, he is heartbroken. And this man who is big and bulky, who is described as a man who is a hunter, who is big and strong, falls at his father's feet and weeps like a little baby. Because that's how important blessings are. And the Hebrew author also gives us another hint how important blessings can be. For if you look in verse 18, it says, "So he, Jacob, went into his father." The word he went into is Vayavu, which literally means he went into. Now, some of your translations may say that he went into his father's tent, but literally in the Hebrew, it means he went into his father. And we see this verbiage used again in other parts of Genesis when it talks about a man going into a woman and having a relationship with her. Now, this doesn't literally mean that Jacob had sex with his father, but it shows us how intimate this moment was, how important the blessing was, that it compares it to the intimate relationship between a husband and his wife. And so when Jacob seals this blessing from his brother, it feels like his brother has been raped. Not only has he been cheated, but he has been abused and taken advantage of because he lost something that was so precious to him. This is how important blessings are to the Hebrew culture. And I wanted to share this with you because I thought it would be cool as a church to bless our graduates before they go into the world. So in a moment, I'm going to ask the graduates to stand. And we're going to have two blessings that are going to be shown up behind me. And I ask us as a church to please recite these two famous blessings in the Bible and to bless our graduates and to really mean the words that we say. To let them know that first we love them. And the second, to let them know that we care about them and that we want God to bless them. So graduates, can you please stand? And church, can we please bless our graduates for these next two blessings? It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. Graduates of 2018, congratulations. We're happy that we get to celebrate this occasion with you, and we also want you to know that we're so proud of you. That you have a church family who loves you so dearly, and you have a God and Savior who loves you so much more. We are proud of what you have accomplished, and we can't wait to see what is next in your journey. With that said, if there's any needs that any of you have, please feel free to come forward or talk to me or the elders afterwards. as together we stand and sing the next song.